New Year's attack ends the lives of 10 people, injures 35 after an individual rammed revelers on Bourbon Street in New Orleans and opened fire. This happening this morning, New Year's Day, as we're hearing that this attack took place and investigations are underway by the FBI. Now, I'm going to be sharing with you the latest coming out on this unfolding overnight, as we mentioned, an attack, and they're saying this act... you're going to see it for yourself, the latest coming out on this. And as we mentioned, 10 people losing their lives so far that we've heard, 35 being injured. Let me go ahead and get you caught up on the latest. Let's go ahead and take a look at the video footage so that way you can see it for yourself.
A New Year's tragedy unfolding in New Orleans earlier this morning.
Multiple people are dead and at least 30 have been hospitalized after a car plowed into the crowd.
Yeah, tragic. Chanley Painter joins us now. Chanley, what do we know so far?
Yeah, it is a developing story, but we have confirmed that at least 10 people are dead after a car drove into a large crowd celebrating New Year's on Canal and Bourbon Street. At least another 30 people had to be hospitalized. This all happening just hours ago on undoubtedly one of the busiest nights of the year, with New Year's and the Sugar Bowl taking place later today. Right now, there's still a huge police presence at the scene, including the FBI, the coroner's office, and the mayor also said to be at that scene. Now, the driver reportedly got out of the vehicle and fired a weapon. Police are said to have returned fire. No word yet at this point on the state of the suspect responsible. Witnesses telling local reporters, though, they heard some loud banging and then looked outside and there were bodies on the floor. Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry posting this moments ago on X. A horrific act of violence took place on Bourbon Street earlier this morning. Please join Sharon and I in praying for all the victims and first responders on the scene. I urge all near the scene to avoid the area. And like I said, this is developing. I'm constantly checking my phone with updates as we're learning from the New Orleans police. We expect a press conference soon, guys.
All right, Chanley Painter, thank you very much. Bring us more news as you get it. This is frightening stuff. New Orleans is a party town. I had a roommate in college, from New Orleans, and we spent a lot of great times there during the college years at Mardi Gras and Jazz Fest and stuff. But the mindset, if you've ever been there, is, it's like Las Vegas. You're just all in, all party. And so it's interesting, Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry tweeting out, I urge all, near the scene to take precaution, clear the area, which can sometimes be a little more difficult in a city that's used to just partying. Now this horrific tragedy unfolding as you look at the images of the crime scene here happening just literally hours ago.
Yeah, we talk all the time about this city, New York City, and crime, and what happens on the subway, and these horrific things that happen on the streets, people being randomly punched or shot. New Orleans is one of the cities that has been hit worst by this, what we would call a crime epidemic. In 2019, I went to the Sugar Bowl and walked around Bourbon Street, then the entire French Quarter. I didn't think twice about it. Bunch of football fans. Nothing felt unsafe or dangerous or even, bad in any way. And then by the time I revisited at a different time of year in 2022, I was told, hey, you want to stay in the Garden District and don't be in the French Quarter at night. That's how much it had turned to the worst, and here's a very tragic example of that right there in New Orleans.
Well, the city was hit really bad with tourism with the COVID lockdowns, and they really had a hard time recovering. But there are great people there with energy, and I'm sure they had a lot of people traveling there to be there. The festivities looked like they were absolutely beautiful. As we first heard about this story earlier today, I had so many questions. Well, what happened? Is this a drunk driver that inadvertently went off the road and accidentally hit? But then when you started hearing about the gunfire and realizing that this probably was intentional that now they've killed 10 people, 30 still in hospital. We don't know if any more are going to die. I mean, it's devastating, and it's certainly not news that you want to bring in the new year. But this is the reality that cities all across the country are facing right now, the high crimes, economic instability, and people are just not in a good place, which is why looking forward to 2025, people are beginning to feel hopeful that things are going to turn around with the promises that President-elect Trump is making and the plans that he has for the country on how to get crime under control and really try to boost our economic sector.
Yeah, and, thank goodness that law enforcement, first responders were working and able to respond. As you can see on our screen, we know so far at this moment, a developing story, 10 dead, 30 hurt after a car plowed into the crowd. And as you mentioned, Nicole, shots were exchanged between the police and those that carried this out. Will bring you more as we get it.
So there you have it, you guys. Let me know your thoughts. And again, they said this is a developing story. So that was just a couple of hours ago. But now we're hearing just in the past 40 minutes that this was, in fact, an act of terrorism. Now, we don't have confirmation or the details yet as to what necessarily that means, but you're going to hear them say this is this specific act that has taken place. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let's take a look at the video footage. Now, like they said, this is developing. There's news pouring in. So as things are confirmed, I'll be sure to let you know. But let's take a look at this video footage so you can see it for yourself.
Moments ago, the FBI releasing this statement this morning. An individual drove a car into a crowd of people on Bourbon Street in New Orleans, killing a number of people and injuring dozens of others. The subject then engaged with local law enforcement and is now deceased. The FBI is the lead investigative agency, and we are working with our partners to investigate this as an act of terrorism. Let's bring in Ted Williams, Fox News contributor, former D.C. homicide detective and defense attorney. Ted, so initially the mayor of New Orleans comes out and says that this is a terrorist attack. Then the FBI in the same press conference says that it is not, and it is our understanding, obviously, with this statement, just clarifying, they're still investigating whether or not it is, and that's just the facts at this point. We don't know, but at the end of the day, Ted, I wanted to get your sense here of just the unpredictability of a vehicle ramming attack like this. Using a vehicle, this is a incredibly difficult type of attack to try to stop.
You know, let me offer my deepest condolences, if I can, Brian, to all who have lost their lives there. But as I was thinking about this as I was coming on, this is clearly an act of terrorism. We saw this just most recently in Germany, where someone used a vehicle to go into a crowd and kill many people. And as the chief of police or the superintendent of police there in New Orleans has said, it is no doubt in my mind that this was an intentional act. This person intentionally decided to go into that crowd and to try to kill as many people as possible. This is what I define as a soft target. And this is something that we have been hoping that in America we could be vigilant on, because we have not had this kind of attack recently in America. So it is certainly something that I'm sure with the Sugar Bowl there in New Orleans tonight that they're definitely concerned about, and I'm sure it's going to be all hands on deck there in New Orleans tonight.
Yeah, that is a great point, Ted. Molly here. These vehicle attacks, as you mentioned, they've become more common, more prevalent all around the globe. In 2016, there was the massive attack in Nice that killed so many people and became one of the most high-profile attacks of this kind. And shortly after that, there were major facelifts that were done down in this Bourbon Street area to create bollards. And as that press conference was coming to a close this morning, one of the reporters shouted out a question about those bollards. You know, for me, when you think of Bourbon Street, it's a promenade, there are people walking on it, we know it needs to be protected, and somehow a vehicle made it onto that stretch of ground. What do you make of this?
You know, Molly, the one problem we have in America here in law enforcement is that it's unfortunately at times we let our guard down, and this perhaps may be one of those times where we let our guard down here in this country. It is no doubt about it. I'm from Louisiana. I'm very much aware of Bourbon Street, and I'm aware of the various kind of barricades that they were attempting to use there in New Orleans. But this person decided and found a way to get around those barriers, and it could very well be, and the investigation will certainly bear it out one way or another, that there was some relaxed situation going on. But I got to tell you, right now what they're doing is Bourbon Street itself is a crime scene. And now that we've learned that the killer is down, they are trying to learn as much as they can about him and his leanings, whether they are international leanings or whether they are local leanings. But there's something, unfortunately, that set this guy off. And I would again say it is definitely an act of terrorism on the good people of Louisiana there.
Ted, this happened at 3:15 in the morning, local time, 4:15 Eastern, about that time. This is right after the ball drop. You've got people there celebrating. This is a complex, very large crime scene. I'm wondering, in those immediate moments, when you arrive at a scene like this, you've got people that are in bars and in clubs who may be intoxicated to some degree, all throughout Bourbon Street. How do you respond to something like that? And how important is it? Because we're hearing from the ground that people were stuck. They weren't allowed to leave their establishment. So how do you clear out an area like Bourbon Street on New Year's Eve?
You know, it's a very insurmountable task for law enforcement to handle under the circumstances, because you're right, Brian, there are individuals down there that are celebrating, they're drinking, are intoxicated. There are other individuals who saw certain things happen. And what you are counting on is the public. For individuals who may have seen something, to go to any law enforcement officers they could and report that kind of information. It is not an easy scene under the circumstances, because you have really here several different crime scenes. You have the crime scene there on Bourbon Street, or you have now wherever the individual who was found dead, that part is a crime scene. Now you go further, the individual's residence is a crime scene. So this is where you have an all hands on deck, all law enforcement officers, I'm sure in New Orleans there, are on alert. But I got to tell you, just as this happened in New Orleans, I would hope that around our country right now, law enforcement are on alert, because this is certainly something very sensitive. And law enforcement, and hopefully at the next press conference, they'll give us more information as to what took place here.
Yeah, Ted, that's a great point. The next press conference is expected to be at 11 a.m. this morning. I want to just delve a little bit more into the idea of this suspect. Very often we've seen the vehicle attacks. It is a lone wolf type of person. Is there any indication here, any thoughts you might have as to whether or not this is someone who acted alone, or is there a very strong possibility there could be something broader at stake?
You know, Molly, at this stage, it's very difficult for me even to speculate. This will be driven by the investigation and what they're able to come up with. I would have to believe that at this stage in the investigation, even though it's early on and this happened around 3:15 a.m. this morning, they know a great deal about the killer or the person who is now dead. And they are following up on that kind of information. And that's going to be very important to come up with what was the motive behind this and what was the circumstances, or were there others involved, or was this a lone wolf,
FBI,
or was he acting in concert with others? All of those things are on the table, and I'm sure they've got federal, state, and local investigators all working together to try to come up with some answers in regards to this sad situation.
Ted, when we do these mass shootings, we know that there is a protocol by law enforcement. Go in and take out that shooter as quickly as possible. Now that we're seeing things like these vehicle ramming attacks like this isn't the first time that an attacker in a vehicle runs people over, then comes out and starts shooting. Here in New York, Halloween 2017, a story I covered here, when he rammed and killed 8 people on the West End here on the bike path, he came out and with a paintball and a gun and pellet gun and started waving it. Now, in this situation, New Orleans, we know that there were 2 officers who were shot. What is the protocol? Is there a protocol for law enforcement at a vehicle ramming incident like this about how you approach this person? Do you start shooting right away?
Well, I can tell you there are protocols all over this country for these kinds of incidents. If you remember in Waukesha, Wisconsin, we had a parade going on there where somebody used a vehicle there. There are protocols in place, but even the best laid plans can be gotten around. And these individuals who do these kinds of acts, many of them takes a lot of time to plan and to see how they can circumvent law enforcement and get around some of the protocols that are in place. In this one, from what I understand, the vehicle went around the barrier. And this person, again, after he mowed these people down, he got out and he was able to shoot 2 law enforcement officers.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Ted Williams, thank you.
There you have it, you guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Now, in addition to that, while this has been coming out, I've just been checking the feeds, and we have an update. I was going to share with you some more footage coming out, but I just discovered something right now. They are now saying that this was planned out, that this was not just an act of passion, that he just decided to play out all of the sudden, like something unfolded. They're now saying that this was very planned out, this coming out from the FBI. So I'm going to switch over here because I was going to play for you another clip, but I want to switch to this one. This just came out 10 minutes ago. Let's go ahead and take a look so you can see it for yourself.
Former FBI agent and Fox News contributor Nicole Parker. Nicole, thank you for waking up for us on this New Year's Day. You are seeing the news unfold, and we are trying to parse and make sense of the unbelievably conflicting messages coming from the mayor, calling it a terror attack, and then the now FBI Assistant Special Agent in Charge, Aletha Duncan, immediately saying it was not.
You know, Griff, first of all, thank you for having me join. What a horrible tragedy. I mean, I literally were waking up with hope for 2025. I was literally out running, and I got a text message from Fox asking if I could join, and here we are, again, discussing another tragedy in our country. I agree with you. That press conference was not good. You cannot send a conflicting message out to the American people and give them reassurance that everything's okay. That was very confusing, and you're exactly right. You have someone from the police department coming out and saying it's terrorism, and then you have FBI coming out and saying it is not terrorism, but there are IEDs involved. My gut instinct, this is terrorism. The FBI is taking over this for a reason. There will be a lot of information that will come out. I do know individuals that are on the ground there right now. This is very serious. This is the real deal. They're going to do a very full and thorough investigation. At this point, that's all I can tell you, Griff, is that this is the real deal. You will get more information coming soon. Likely involves I think that there's definitely some foreign terrorist organization groups involved backing this. As you mentioned, that there's been other things that have occurred in other countries recently, similar in nature. There are people that hate America. They hate our freedoms. They hate what we stand for. This is a time when people are celebrating New Year's. This is 2025. People have hope. And like you said, big bowl game going on. People are coming together, and this person was hell-bent on causing absolute destruction and chaos. The fact that the FBI said it is not terrorism. Again, I am not the spokesperson for the FBI. I am a former FBI agent. I would strongly disagree with that statement, and I do believe that it is terrorism. The fact that the FBI is taking over, that is a very strong indication. And based on information that I have, this is the real deal, and it is very serious.
Hi, Nicole. Thanks so much for being with us. This is Nicole. Question for you. Chief Kirkpatrick said that they spoke to the White House and that the FBI is going to be taking over the investigation. And then, Special Agent Duncan then came out and said this is not a terrorism event. I feel like she was alluding to maybe at this time, what would it take for them to declare this a terrorist event? Maybe they're waiting for more information or confirmation of something. But what is it that they would be looking for to actually give it that classification?
Right. So there have been instances that I've, responded to, and initially it could go either way, right? It could go with the locals, it could go with the feds. But anytime that there's mention or indication or sign of something like ISIS, that's going to go to FBI. Okay. So anything that is declared or appears to be terrorist related, whether it is or it is not in the end, if there are any indications that it could be, that's going to automatically go to FBI. The fact that it is going to FBI, that is a strong indication of what is going on right now. Again, I have sources that this is a terrorist event.
Nicole, so if you know, you've said some things and you hadn't said them together. You know people there, you have sources. You strongly believe this is a terrorist attack. You even went so far as to say, you know, potentially foreign actors involved, maybe linked, similar to incidents that have happened. So if we take that at face value, if we take this idea that 2 out of 3 people essentially called it a terrorist attack, then we deduce that perhaps the assistant special agent in charge misspoke. If that were the case, is there any onus at the FBI to come back to the microphone and clear that up quickly, or wait till the next press conference? I mean, they have to know that, you know, Fox is sitting here talking about this. The other networks are probably talking about this. Everyone's confused. Where, you know, isn't there some sort of, is there someone in charge who would say, hey, let's go back to the microphone and clear this up real quick?
I absolutely agree with your statement. I left the FBI for a reason. Unfortunately, I can't explain what they did. I no longer work there, but I can just tell you that, you know, they're probably being very careful to make certain statements publicly because they want to make sure that they have all their ducks in a row. And I respect that, right? But when you have people from different law enforcement agencies giving conflicting information, that's never a good thing for the American people. They deserve transparency. They deserve to understand what's going on in their communities. And I'll just leave it at that. I would hope that the FBI would clarify things as quickly as they possibly can, because there does seem to be some confusion, and that's never a good thing. But like Alexis mentioned, you know, your reporter, when things initially break out, there always is chaos. I worked on violent crime at the FBI, and you know, when something breaks, it's always go, and tons of information's coming in, and everyone's just trying to get all hands on deck and get things organized. Maybe that's what that was. But I just would like you to know, and for viewers to know, that sadly and tragically, this does appear that this wasn't just, like one of the officers mentioned, this is not just someone who was drunk and drove their car into a crowd. This does appear to be quite intentional, probably very well planned out. Probably didn't just come up with this idea today, probably planned this out several days in advance, maybe more. This is a hot spot. This is where people celebrate. And we know that those that commit terrorist acts, their goal is to create total chaos, havoc, fear, death, and destruction. And there are people that want to see us be hurt.
Well, and you mentioned a hot spot, Nicole. Look, this is very much still ongoing. New Orleans Emergency Preparedness Homeland Security Office tweeting out at their NOLA Ready X account handle saying, because this is an active scene, we're urging residents to stay off Bourbon and to Canal, and Dumaine to Royal to Dauphine. So it appears that they are concerned about what may still exist. And walk us through maybe some of their concerns as people are starting to wake up in New Orleans. You know, what might be further concerns that they're being so careful about?
Right. So the ASAC Alethea Duncan, she mentioned IEDs. That's obviously a very serious concern, right? They need to do this is a very active investigation right now. That in and of itself, you need to stay out of the area because they've got to have all the space they need. This is a crime scene, and they need everyone to stay away. And the fact that there could be other IEDs, if that was when, you know, mentioned that they said that there were IEDs involved, you know, they need to do major sweeps of the area. But again, active crime scene in and of itself without IEDs, stay away from the area. And I know that's not reassuring to tourists. I mean, this is the hottest spot in New Orleans. But you know what? Your safety is first. I guarantee you they're going to be evacuating the areas in that surrounding immediate area. There's going to be a lot that they're going to have to do, but I truly believe this is an act of terrorism and needs to be treated as such. And this is an all hands on deck matter. And it's very tragic that this is how we're starting off 2025 in America.
It is. It's tragic. 10 dead, 30 in the hospital. 2 officers have been shot. You know, Nicole, one thing that they said eight blocks. They don't want anybody coming. They mentioned that there's possible explosive device. We have the Sugar Bowl there later on today. What do you think the FBI is going to do in preparation of that? Should people be concerned?
Right. Well, I can tell you that the FBI has been preparing for the Sugar Bowl. That's not something, again, that the FBI starts preparation for. Again, I was an FBI agent here in Miami. We have the Orange Bowl. You know, we have big events here in Miami. We have the Super Bowl. Those are things that, as the FBI, they prep for these events well in advance, and they're prepping with the local counterparts, local, state, and federal. They're all getting hands on deck. But when an incident like this happens, Nicole, this is actually the type of thing that they try to mitigate the threat that this could occur. Yeah. Sadly, the tragedy has already occurred. And so I'm not saying that they couldn't, continue to wreak havoc on other venues, but I would hope and pray that the worst is behind New Orleans. This is absolutely horrific and tragic. But yes, you're right. The FBI works with their local, state, and federal counterparts for large events, especially like a bowl game. There's a lot of preparation that goes into it. But sadly, this event already occurred. And one thing that I noted from one of the police chiefs that spoke was that this person went around the barricades, because we're in a society now where they set up barricades on streets, everything that they can do to mitigate risk. This person went around that. This was a very planned out, well orchestrated event, and it's very awful. And I just, it's just stunning to me that here we are, New Year's Day, but it's not actually that stunning, because in the FBI and in law enforcement, we all know that the large events, they target large events. Because there are a lot of people and they want to hurt as many people as possible. So again, it's not totally shocking, but that's where we're at.
Yeah, and it really does highlight the fact that with all of our efforts and all the things that are thwarted every day, that we're still vulnerable in a free society, and there's still opportunity for people to hurt us and harm us. And Nicole Parker, former FBI agent, thank you so much for joining us.
There you have it, you guys. Let me know your thoughts. Now, a lot of interesting developments. Now, just to clarify again, this update just coming out in the past 15 minutes, as they are saying that you heard them there, that former FBI agent coming out and saying that she believes that this was an act of terrorism. Let me know if you agree. If you feel that this was, put a 1. If you feel like it wasn't, put a 2. Maybe you think it's something else. Let me know your thoughts. Tony Rivera, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. But let me go ahead and get you caught up on some more information, because as we are live right now, people are dropping in updates in the comments saying what they think that these things are that are going on here. And what I'm going to be sharing with you is an article that just came out. And what's interesting is that I'm trying to find this on the U.S. news media headlines, the mainstream media, and I am not finding anything. However, I pulled up a foreign news media outlet, and I was able to find something that is actually being mentioned here in the comments while we are live. And if you appreciate that, do me a favor, if you haven't done so yet. I forgot to ask if you could hit the like button. Even though I know this is not the information anybody wants to hear, it helps spread this out so more people can get the updates. Also, subscribe to stay up to date if this is your first time here. But take a look at this with me now. This came out, and this is from the Times of India. So India actually is reporting more information than the U.S. mainstream news media outlets are. This says the New Orleans attacker's truck had a back flag. Now, the back flag, I think they meant to put black flag. There was a black flag, they're saying, on the back of the truck. It says what we know about the suspect so far, and you can see this coming out today, and it's already almost the end of the day in India. It says New Year's horror in New Orleans. This attacker, he used a white truck to ram into the reveling crowds in New Orleans. While the identity of this person has not yet been established, the truck that he drove at a high pace has a Texas number plate. So there was a Texas license plate and a black flag, I think that's supposed to be black flag, tied onto it at the back. And you can see the caption underneath the photo here says, the truck, which was used to crush 10 people at a New Year's Eve gathering in New Orleans, had a black flag and a Texas license plate. It says a driver who was hell-bent on carnage rammed a truck into reveling crowds on New Orleans' famous Bourbon Street, turning the new year into a tragedy. 10 people lost their lives and 30 were injured hours after the revelers celebrated the new year. The FBI has taken up the investigation as several IEDs were found on the spot. The FBI said that they were investigating whether the IEDs were viable or not to ascertain whether it was an act of terror. And again, as we're hearing, there's more information. This is a developing story, people are saying, and you heard it from that reporter that just came out about 15 minutes ago, that they believe that this was, first there was just no information as to what went on, if this was an act of passion or if this was planned out. We're now hearing they believe it was planned out. Bobby Jackson, thank you for the $10 super chat. Boy, 2025 starting out with tragedy already. Yes, it is pretty wild. We're hearing IEDs. We're hearing, she is saying that she believes it's going to come out that this was from a foreign actor and that there's more to this than just some New Year's attack. Certain whether this was that particular attack. New Orleans mayor said that it was a terrorist attack, but the New Orleans police chief and the FBI agents in the joint press conference shot down the speculations that it was a terrorist attack. So that is exactly what we just heard from the live reporting on this, as she had said that they are trying to, she believes, be very careful about what they say before they say it. But she said that the fact that it has moved on to the FBI, she said that that means she believes that it has escalated up the chain, and that means that they believe there are foreign actors involved and that this is potentially an act of terrorism. So we will see. Like I said, this is a developing story. I will keep you up to date, but we're hearing that there was a black flag on the back of the truck. And I actually saw people in the chats mentioning this, and I'm looking for it. I'm not seeing this reported on the mainstream media news outlets here in the United States, but foreign media news outlets are reporting on it. So absolutely wild that we've got people on the other side of the world that are reporting with more updated information than we have right here in the U.S. And like I said, though, but I will check all the sources. I'm checking foreign news media outlets, mainstream media news outlets. I'm checking various social media platforms to get you guys the latest information. And if you appreciate that, do me a favor. If you haven't done so yet, hit that like button. Even though I know this is not the news anybody wants to hear, hitting the like button helps spread this out further so more people can get the latest updated information. Subscribe to stay up to date. It's totally free. But let's take a look at some more video footage that has been coming out in just the past couple of hours on this. And while we're watching this, getting the updates, I'm going to be checking the live feeds so that way if any more news comes out on this, I can share it with you right away. But let's take a look at this video footage so that way you can see the updates.
Fox News Alert, let's go back to Alexis McAdams with more details. Alexis.
Yeah, so we just got into our newsroom some breaking news. Fox News now confirming, Griff, that the suspect in this ongoing investigation that they're calling a mass casualty that left 10 people dead and others injured is a man who is now dead. They're waiting on his name, his age, etc. So David Spunt is reporting on this as well. He's working on this and talking to his sources. According to David Spunt and his sources, this guy plowed into the crowd, then fired into that crowd, exchanging gunfire with police. As we said, the suspect is dead, but it's unclear at this point, right? We don't know yet if he was hit by police or how he died, you know, if this was a self-inflicted gunshot wound. So we're working to get more on that. But you can see the sun is now up there in New Orleans. They've got the crime scene tape up. This is all on Bourbon Street and Canal Street. This is such a busy area. So people waking up there to also be in town for the Sugar Bowl, thousands of people heard this from police. Listen.
What I also can tell you is that this man, this perpetrator, he fired on our officers from his vehicle when he crashed his vehicle. 2 of our officers have been shot. They are stable. He was hell-bent on creating the carnage and the damage.
Yeah, I mean, these officers were arriving because of what was happening. We know they had all hands on deck, just like they did last night when I was out in New York City for the ball drop. And they have these take months to prep for when you're in a big city like this, especially on Bourbon Street. They're used to big events. But they had all of their officers out there. So to know that now we know officers were wounded, we're going to have to wait and see exactly what their injuries are. Griff, you mentioned this, but let's just talk about it real quick. President Biden, we know, was briefed on the horrific news of this driver killing people in New Orleans overnight. So the FBI, as we said, is on the ground. The White House knows about it. Local law enforcement, state, federal, you name it. Everybody's involved at this point.
All right, Alexis McAdams in our New York City newsroom. Alexis, great work. Bring us more information and details as you get it. Thank you.
So big piece of information there, Griff, that we have confirmed that the man who plowed down the street, killing 10 people, injuring about 30, has now been confirmed dead after a shootout with police. We know 2 officers have been shot. According to the superintendent, they are in stable condition, but that man is dead. Whether it was a self-inflicted gunshot wound or by fire from the police, we don't know yet.
No, and let's bring in now the former Boston Police Commissioner, Ed Davis, who led the department during the Boston Marathon bombings. Ed, thank you for getting up and talking with us. Obviously, as a reporter, I remember covering you, sir, during the Boston bombing. In the press conferences you held with us were quite as thorough as they could be. We had a long stretch from Monday to Thursday that there was little information, but yet you continued to keep us informed during that time and answer our questions. And really now, Ed, what's at the front of this story right now is the conflicting messages over the mayor saying this was a terror incident and the special agent in charge of the FBI that now has the lead saying it's not. What is your reaction? And if it were of a terrorist nature, what would be your concerns and thoughts at this moment?
Right. Good morning. This is another terrible incident that does bring back horrible memories of what we went through over 10 years ago. But really, the critical mission for the police and the prosecutors is to keep people informed. There's thousands, maybe tens of thousands of people in the city right now about to go to the bowl game later today, and they're uncertain. They're terrified. So you want to try to give them as much information as you can. And this has been a confusing morning. It's great that the information is leaking out that the suspect has been killed and is no longer a threat. So that's a big component. But that didn't come during the official news conference, and so that's a crucial piece of information that really should have been out there. The other thing is, it is confusing that they say the FBI has stepped in, but it's not. There's no nexus to terrorism. Those are sort of conflicting statements. The FBI has to come in on a federal case. There has to be a nexus, some kind of connection to a federal crime. So the question is, what kind of crime is this? Are they just assisting a state prosecution, but taking over the lead of the investigation? That's quite unusual. So this might be a case of the FBI's chain of command not officially declaring this a terrorism event. We ran into that in the Marathon investigation. It took several hours to run the fact pattern up through the Justice Department and the Bureau, and then determine whether or not they would take it over as a terrorist case. So a lot of questions here.
Ed, go ahead.
I just want to follow up if I can on that, because Ed, specifically when you got the 2 brothers, then we had the fuller picture. And so I'm just sort of stunningly struck that we didn't get any information from that press conference, particularly from the FBI special agent, if she is on the lead right now, of whether or not this was isolated to this one individual that we've now confirmed is dead, or could there be others involved in this?
Right, and I can tell you from experience that when there's an improvised explosive device involved, that requires a level of expertise. People can kill themselves trying to build something like this. So the fact that there was a device on scene that may in fact be explosive, it does open the question as to whether or not this is a lone actor, or even, I mean, I don't want to inflame fear here, but you do have to keep the option open that there may be a continuing threat in a situation like this. Sometimes there are cells of people. This is something that points out how important it is to communicate with the public effectively in the early hours of an incident like this.
And I want to go back to the press conference, because it's hard for me to get over the fact that it felt like the FBI assistant special agent was in a completely different press conference, because you had the police commissioner come out and say, she said, go on about your day and enjoy the festivities. And then you have the FBI agent come out and say there are suspected IDs. I was Neo-D Tech. I understand some of the protocol when it comes to IDs, and it's not go gallivant around the city and there's no threat. So my question is on this point of a current threat, an ongoing threat. IEDs can be put, laid, and wait anywhere. Do you feel like there's some responsibility either on behalf of the city or the FBI to come back to the microphone immediately or sooner rather than later and give people more information?
Something like this, in fairness to the people involved, there is the fog of war that's happening right now. You're getting a lot of information that you're not certain of. As the chief stepped up to the microphone, she said, just on my way down here, I heard about or found out about more victims at different hospitals. So this is very much an unfolding incident. It's very early on in the incident. They have to get the facts down first, and then there's the partnership of two big agencies. I've worked closely with the New Orleans Police Department. They're a big, complex organization that handle an enormous amount of crime day in and day out. And then you've got the FBI coming in, who also have their own protocols and chain of command. And so the fact that an assistant special agent in charge said something that might not be completely logical is not surprising at this juncture, but it is up to everyone to pull it together, get experts in communication to the table, and then get valid information out there so people will know how to conduct themselves today.
And that's what we need is more information. Former Boston Police Commissioner Ed Davis. Ed, thank you for taking time.
There you have it, you guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Now, we are hearing this is starting to look more and more like a potential act of terror. As I shared with you, the black flag on the back of the truck, we're hearing there were IEDs, and you heard him say that this is something that has to be planned out, and you heard him mention that there are cells in the United States that have been planning to do something like this. So he is insinuating sleeper cells. Let me know, do you think that this potentially could be a sleeper cell attack that is getting planned out here? And he said that we also need to take into consideration the fact that there could be more of these that could be coming on the way. And he said he doesn't want to spark any fear or concern. He doesn't want to say anything just quite yet. And he said he believes that is why the FBI at this time is not really coming out and confirming anything. Do you think that's what it is? If you think this is potentially a sleeper cell attack of terror, put a 3. If you think no, it's not, put a 4. But this is a developing story that is coming out. Now, while this is coming out here, I have been taking a look at the feeds, like I said, trying to get you guys the latest information. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at some of these. I actually found some video footage that has just come out 10 minutes ago from an FBI specialist, and also we're hearing President Joe Biden's response. So let's go ahead and take a look at this so I can get you caught up on the latest. And I apologize, bear with me. I'm moving things around here while I'm pulling up these feeds. And I see the 3s coming in. Do me a favor, while you're dropping those 3s or 4s, hit the like button for me. I know nobody likes this news, but this does help spread this out across the YouTube platform when you hit the like button so more people can get the latest updates. Now take a look at this. This is one of the live feeds coming out here. This one from Fox News says, New Orleans mayor declares this a terrorist attack on Bourbon Street. FBI confirms investigation. And we heard that individual say that it goes up the chain of command to the FBI when they believe that there are foreign actors involved. So that in and of itself, she said, was concerning. President-elect Trump calls the Bourbon Street attack an act of pure evil. This coming out 11 minutes ago. President-elect Donald Trump called the Bourbon Street attack an act of pure evil in a statement on the incident on Wednesday today. When I saw that the criminals were coming in are far worse than the criminals that we have in our country, that statement was constantly refuted by Democrats and the fake news media, but it turned out to be true. So we're hearing right here, Donald Trump is insinuating this is a foreign actor. Now, the crime rate in our country is at a level that nobody has ever seen before. Our hearts are with all of the innocent victims and their loved ones, including the brave officers of the New Orleans Police Department. The Trump administration will fully support the city of New Orleans as they investigate and recover from this act of pure evil. At least 10 people have lost their lives, 35 people have been injured when a male suspect drove a pickup truck into a large crowd of New Year's revelers on Bourbon Street in New Orleans early Wednesday morning. The suspect lost his life after a shootout with police officers. Now, take a look at this. Truck used in the Bourbon Street attack had Texas plates, crossed southern border days ago, sources say. So they're saying that this is more indication that this is a foreign actor. Fox News has learned that the truck used in the Bourbon Street attack had a Texas license plate and crossed the southern border just days ago. Two federal law enforcement sources who were not authorized to speak publicly said that the pickup truck used in the attacks was tracked crossing the southern border into the U.S. at Eagle Pass, Texas, 2 days ago. It had not been confirmed that the attacker was driving the vehicle when it crossed the border. Police have also not confirmed the attacker's immigration status. At least 10 people have lost their lives, 35 people have been injured, and the driver plowed a pickup truck into a crowd of New Year's revelers on Bourbon Street in New Orleans early Wednesday morning. The driver, a male, reportedly jumped out of the vehicle and opened fire on police after hitting the crowd. The brief shootout ended with the suspect losing his life at the scene, authorities have confirmed. Police say 35 people have been transported to 5 hospitals across the city after suffering injuries from these attacks. Now, former FBI official says it is premature to label Bourbon Street an attack a terror incident. Now, I had shared with you some of the stuff that had come out on this, but there's more video footage coming out. It says former FBI assistant Chris Swecker said that it is premature for law enforcement to call the Bourbon Street attack an act of terror. At least 10 people lost their lives, 35 people were injured after a man drove a pickup truck into a large crowd of New Year's revelers on Bourbon Street in New Orleans early Wednesday morning. After crashing the vehicle, the driver jumped out of the truck and traded gunfire with police officers, and he lost his life. Swecker said that based on the publicly available facts, this was an intentionally planned suicide attack, but he would not call a terrorist attack until the driver and his motives are known. As a security professional, an act like this is very predictable and thus preventable. It's happened twice in New Orleans. It just happened in Germany, and these attacks tend to be viral-type events, Swecker told Fox News Digital. What I mean by that is it is a copycat motivated by highlighting their cause perpetrated a similar type of attack. It's nearly impossible to protect an entire venue like Canal Street, but if this vehicle penetrated the actual perimeter of the event, then perhaps you can draw the conclusion that there was some complacency and not sealing off the event from vehicle attackers. Swecker said that the most important job of the police officers in New Orleans during a holiday like New Year's is to set up a perimeter around where large crowds of people are gathered. You have to question how a truck got through the perimeter. I can see a lone gunman getting through. It's hard to fathom a truck breaching the perimeter, he said. So they're saying that, hey, there was a failure here on security for the area. Attorney General Garland reacts to the Bourbon Street attack as well. Attorney General Merrick Garland released a statement on the Bourbon Street attack Wednesday, offering thoughts and prayers to the victims and the families. The country woke up this morning to the news of a terrible tragedy in New Orleans that people, at least 10 of them, lost their lives and many more were injured, he said. My heart is broken for those who began their year by learning people that they loved lost their lives in a horrific attack. And my prayers are with the dozens who were injured, including the New Orleans Police Department officers who risked their lives to save others. The FBI is investigating this matter as an act of terrorism. The FBI, the ATF, and the Justice Department's National Security Division and the U.S. Attorney Office for the Eastern District of Louisiana will continue to work with our law enforcement partners and will deploy every available resource to conduct this investigation. The suspect in the attack has lost his life. At least 10 people have lost their life and 35 injured after he drove a pickup truck into a crowd of people celebrating the New Year on Bourbon Street in New Orleans. And here you can see Bourbon Orleans hotel workers heard soft bangs hours after the Bourbon Street attack. So that is coming from the live feed. Gorilla Barber 207, thank you for the $5 super chat. So are they now banning trucks or key trucks from Texas, the same stance they take on firearms? Excellent point, Gorilla. Thank you for that $5 super chat. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Now, in addition to that, let's go ahead and take a look at some more updated footage, as I mentioned. Now, this coming out just 15 minutes ago, former FBI specialist agent on the New Orleans truck attack is going to give us some information. Let's go ahead and take a look here.
I just want to reiterate for anybody who might just be joining us that we are reporting on breaking news out of New Orleans at around 3:17 a.m. local time. There were reports of a vehicle having driven through a crowd of pedestrians on the packed Bourbon Street as revelers were ringing in the new year. A total of 10 victims declared deceased on the scene, 35 victims to have suffered injuries in this. We also know that the suspect apparently opened fire on responding officers who returned fire, and that person was struck and was subsequently declared deceased on the scene. We know 2 officers in the New Orleans Police Department were struck in the exchange. They are listed in stable condition. I want to bring in back with us former FBI Special Agent Doug Coons. And Doug, as we've been talking to Scott, we've been talking to Sam Vinograd. What are some of your thoughts?
You make a lot of good points. There's a lot of special events coming up, not only in New Orleans, but around the country, football games, college and NFL playoffs and the Super Bowl, along with countless concerts and these kind of things. So all the law enforcement departments around the country are going to be looking at ways to improve the access to these venues to make them even more safe, and that might be parking trucks, normal pedestrian walkways or things like that. So we may see some changes, may see some inconveniences. And it's just how it is, I guess, when we have these things happening. Someone else earlier mentioned there's this line between the businesses and the public's access to these things they want to enjoy, along with the difficulty of keeping them all safe. And it's difficult, but that's what we do.
And while we've been talking, we have new information just into our CBS News newsroom that according to sources, law enforcement and city official sources to our Rob Legary, Anna Schechter, and Rich Esposito, investigators are probing whether the suspect was connected to or inspired by a foreign terror organization. This note also says what we have previously reported, that investigators are analyzing potential explosive devices recovered at or near the scene. So, Doug, when we have the fact that investigators are probing whether the suspect was connected to or inspired by a foreign terror organization, what is the significance of that?
Semantics, this is terrorism, right? This has caused terror and panic amongst the people that are there. People around the country and world are watching this. They're concerned about what's going to happen to them if they go to something like this. So it's terror. So it comes down to, about prosecution and what would someone be charged with. Now, obviously, this person is deceased, but there could be a network of other people. And, the FBI takes the lead in these terrorism investigations. So that's somewhat significant that every field office has a joint terrorism task force comprised of officers from all of the agencies, the state and local agencies and their venue, ATF, DEA. They often are all part of this, and they bring their strengths with them to help out in these kind of investigations. I think another thing they're really going to be looking at is this person's communications. If they recovered a cell phone, any kind of electronic device, who has he been talking to in the last few hours and days before this happened? That will give them a lot of clues as to, is this part of something bigger?
I want to bring Sam Vinograd back into the conversation. Sam, Doug brings up a very good point that, when we're talking about terrorism-related acts, some of it is semantics, that the idea is to create as much terror and fear as possible in a community. But the idea that we can now report, according to sources, investigators are probing whether the suspect was connected to or inspired by a foreign terror organization. Is that something that would happen in any given investigation, or do they have maybe some kind of indication already, and that is why we were able to report that?
Well, Lindsay, I think it could be either of those two options. So typically in a situation like this, investigators are going to look as to whether this individual was inspired by a foreign terrorist organization, was in touch with a foreign terrorist organization, what we call a homegrown violent extremist, or whether this individual was inspired or in touch with domestic terrorists of any kind. So it is usually par for the course to look at whether a suspect in a mass casualty event that's being investigated as terrorism has had any contact or inspiration from a terrorism group of any kind. What we don't know is if law enforcement has found any signs already on the individual's person, in his vehicle, perhaps at his residence, if they know where he lived or where he was staying, or on his social media profiles, which may still be active as far as we know, that this individual had ties to a foreign terrorist organization like ISIS or Al-Qaeda or others. At the same time, as I mentioned, they are also likely reviewing whether this individual was inspired by or in touch with any domestic terrorist organization as well. That is standard in these kinds of investigations.
Sam, what changes might we see tonight at the Sugar Bowl game?
Certainly, there will be an enhanced level of vigilance by law enforcement, but what is hard to predict at this stage is whether there is any associated threat from what occurred at Bourbon Street last night. We have not yet heard from law enforcement that the threat has been totally neutralized, that this individual acted alone and that this individual was not in touch with others to try to inspire them to engage in attacks as well in and around the attack last night. So at the press conference in about 2 hours, I'll be waiting to hear if that is the case. We should expect already there to be significant physical barriers in and around the game where there's a lot of pedestrian traffic. That is likely in place. And we could see some additional level of screening of vehicles coming into or out of parking facilities near to the game itself. But Lindsay, I would have guessed that already there was going to be a high level of security for this event. And so we'll have to wait and see from the press conference whether there's any associated threats with this individual. That the toughest nut to crack is whether there's any copycat attacks, anybody inspired by what transpired a few hours ago to try to take similar action. And those kinds of copycat attacks by lone actors are incredibly difficult to prevent.
You know, we had heard from our CBS News correspondent, Nikki Batiste, yesterday. She was reporting on preparations in New York's Times Square, and that one of the law enforcement officials that she had spoken with said one of the biggest challenges is the unpredictability of this, obviously, for, you know, these actors, bad actors with ill intentions, trying to fly under the radar. And so I wonder, and given the sensitivity of this and the fact that so many people are suffering in New Orleans, what is it about that area, that Bourbon and Canal Street, that would have made it such a target?
Well, it was a target because there was such a dense concentration of individuals and it's a high profile area. So unfortunately, from an impact perspective, this was a high value target. The suspect was able, if in fact he is a perpetrator, to inflict maximum damage in a very short amount of time, to inflict a lot of physical violence. But I do want to note one thing: as difficult as these lone actors and small groups are to find and to prevent attacks occurring from their actions, law enforcement does have a range of tools that they employ, including confidential sources, including surveillance, in both social media channels as well as encrypted platforms, to try to find these individuals before they actually engage in violence. So law enforcement is using every tool at their disposal to try to find individuals before they engage in an act of violence. So it's a responsibility for law enforcement to use those assets very carefully, as well as for the public to contact law enforcement if they ever feel that they see an individual radicalizing to violence. So it's really those two tracks that are going to help make our country safer, Lindsay.
For anyone who is just joining us, I want to go ahead and play some sound that we have from New Orleans Police Department Superintendent about just some of the facts of the case. Let's listen.
This event started at about 3:15. It did involve a man driving a pickup truck down Bourbon Street at a very fast pace, and it was very intentional behavior. This man was trying to run over as many people as he possibly could.
I want to bring back former FBI Special Agent Doug Coons. So, Doug, that assessment there from the New Orleans Police Superintendent, is a lot of the information right now that law enforcement are working with or witness statements and testimony? And do you think by now they're also looking at whether there was any CCTV footage, any closed circuit television footage from surveillance cameras?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, several hours have elapsed now, and I'm sure multiple witnesses have been interviewed. There are cameras everywhere, and those are being gathered and reviewed as we speak, analyzed. They want to know not just, you know, what happened during that time, but can they trace that car back farther? Where did it come from? Where did that person stay the night or the day leading up to this? Basically trying to recreate the entire day, much like with the marathon bombing in Boston years ago. They were able
So there you have it, you guys. So that is the latest coming out from CBS News. Now, in addition to that, we're hearing that Joe Biden has responded to this, and so has Donald Trump as well. They're saying that now this information coming out as to what is going on here. And we're just trying to see what information we can get, as this is a developing story. And like I shared with you guys, I'm actually looking stuff up while we're live. I'm taking a look at the video footage coming out and looking at the live feeds. And I shared with you that there's actually more information, it appears, coming out from the foreign news media outlets than there is from the mainstream media. Right now, we're hearing from the mainstream that they believe that this was a terrorist act, yet it's conflicting. This being announced by the mayor, yet the FBI saying it is premature to do so. But then we have former FBI specialists saying the fact that the FBI is now being pulled into this makes it not a good situation. This makes it look like this is an act of terror, and they're concerned about potential copycats, or could there be more? And we actually heard that previous interview where they said this could be a cell. This could be an activating cell that is taking place, and there could be more on the way as we enter into New Year's. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, but let's take a look at some of the video footage that's coming out here, as we're now hearing that Trump has responded, Biden has responded. Let's see. I'm going to play the video footage so you can see it for yourself. And if you haven't done so yet, please take a second, hit that like button. I know nobody likes this news. However, it does help spread this out so more people can see the latest updates. Let's go ahead and take a look.
So we continue to cover a vehicle ramming attack that has occurred on Bourbon Street in New Orleans. We just got a statement from President-elect Trump on the New Orleans attack. He says, quote, "When I said that the criminals coming in are far worse than the criminals we have in our country, that statement was constantly refuted by Democrats and the fake news media, but it turned out to be true. The crime rate in our country is at a level that nobody has ever seen before. Our hearts are with all of the innocent victims and their loved ones, including the brave officers of the New Orleans Police Department. The Trump administration will fully support the city of New Orleans as they investigate and recover from this act of pure evil."
There you have it, you guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Now, that was the statement that we got from Trump. And then we also have a statement that has come out from Biden. Let's go ahead and take a look at this as well.
Scott McFarland back into the conversation from our D.C. bureau. Scott, what are we hearing from President Biden?
Yeah, President Biden has spoken with the mayor of New Orleans and offered federal resources here, and certainly there are going to be federal resources immediately implemented in New Orleans. This is now a federal investigation. The FBI takes lead on all terrorism investigations in America, and that's where this one is headed. But also, there's a federal prosecutor, there are federal law enforcement agencies that help with these types of things. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms gets involved, especially when a long gun has been recovered, as has been the case here in New Orleans. But this is also happening not in a vacuum, not at a trivial moment, but as large-scale events continue in New Orleans. We mentioned tonight's Sugar Bowl, which will have some complementary federal resources. But then there's next month's Super Bowl, which is truly a national homeland security event. The feds take the lead in securing something as large in scope and size as the Super Bowl. The Department of Homeland Security, FEMA, Immigration, Customs, they're all there. They're all part of the planning for this. The president, speaking with the mayor of New Orleans, has reaffirmed those federal resources are there as New Orleans tries to grapple with not only what happened last night, but what to do moving forward with these heavy pedestrian events that are coming in the next few hours and the next few weeks.
I just want to reiterate for anybody who might just be joining us that we are reporting on breaking news out of New Orleans at around 3:17 a.m. local time. There were reports of a vehicle having driven through a crowd of pedestrians on the packed Bourbon Street as revelers were ringing in the new year. A total of 10 victims declared deceased on the scene, 35 victims to have suffered injuries in this. We also know that the suspect apparently opened fire on responding officers who returned fire, and that person was struck and was subsequently declared deceased on the scene. We know 2 officers in the New Orleans Police Department were struck in the exchange. They are listed in stable condition.
So there you have it, you guys. Now, while I'm playing these for you, I'm also taking a look at the live feeds, trying to get information. And as we mentioned, there were explosive devices that were also found And let me share with you this one coming out here so that way you can see it as to what is coming out on this. So here we go. Let's pull this up for you. New Orleans attack live updates. Viable explosive devices were found at the scene as well. So they said the FBI is now involved in this. This is looking more and more like it was an orchestrated, planned event, and we're hearing, as I shared with you as well, that the truck itself had a black flag on the back, and they believe that there are now foreign actors that are involved. But let's go ahead and go back to this one over here. Now, this one coming out from the New York Post, the one that is giving information about the flag on the back of the vehicle, where it came from, a little bit more information coming out from the Times of India on the other side of the world in the mainstream, but now it's starting to come out, and you heard that individual say that she believed it was going to come out, that this is an act of terror. Says New Year's celebration turned to tragedy in New Orleans after a driver rammed a truck into a crowd at the city's iconic Bourbon Street, ending the lives of 10 people and injuring 35 people as well. Now it says the individual drove a white truck with a black flag on the back through the barricades on the corner of Bourbon and Canal Street. So there you have it. Now finally we're seeing the mainstream media reporting what was reported by the Times of India roughly an hour ago. New Orleans Mayor LaToya Cantrell described the assault as a terrorist attack. The FBI was investigating possible explosives found at the scene as well. The hell-bent assassin engaged in a firefight with cops, injured at least 2 before being shot, losing his life, multiple local outlets have reported. Now, 14 minutes ago, and again, these are the live feeds, FBI looking into whether the truck attack was connected to a Sugar Bowl football game. So the Sugar Bowl football game event also is going to be taking place here. Do you think that they should still have this event? If you think so, put a 5 in the comments. If you think no, put a 6. Let me know your thoughts. If you got tickets to the event, are you going after this has unfolded? The FBI is investigating whether the Bourbon Street attack is connected to the Sugar Bowl, a college football showdown that takes place in New Orleans annually on January 1st. Investigators are looking into the attack as a special event of targeted interest, law enforcement sources told the Post. The game is one of the highest profile sporting events that comes through the city. Now, event organizers decided to go ahead with Wednesday's game as scheduled and are working with local officials to make sure that it remains safe. The truck that plowed down Bourbon Street Wednesday morning, ended the lives of 10 people, was found with improvised explosives inside after the police ended the life of the driver by shooting him. Homeland Security is working closely with law enforcement in terror attack investigation, Mayorkas has said. Homeland Security Chief Alejandro Mayorkas said that his department is working closely on the investigation into the New Orleans car ramming, which ended the lives of at least 10 people. He said in a statement, here you can see it on X coming out this morning, we are working closely with our law enforcement partners in response to the situation in New Orleans. This abhorrent attack is being investigated by the FBI as an act of terrorism. Our hearts break for the families of those whose lives were lost, and our prayers are with those recovering from injuries they suffered. We are grateful for the first responders for their bravery and urge the public to be vigilant. We are working closely. You can say, oh, actually, it's the same quote just being reported again. Trump has denounced these attacks, and it appears that I think we have all the information now. 33 minutes ago, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, vicious attack in New Orleans was pure evil. Barrier intended to block this attack on Bourbon Street, they were removed for overhaul in November. So about a month ago, those bollards were removed and it was able to push through. Oh, here's some pictures from 43 minutes ago. This update, viable IEDs found at the scene on Bourbon Street attack. Now here you can see clearly the picture of the truck. You can see where it's smashed here in the front. You can see the flag on the back with the pole, the black. You can see that it's got a Texas plate. You can see clearly LZ1575. This was the vehicle that they're saying that plowed through, and then the individual came out and started firing. Multiple explosive devices found at the scene of this attack in New Orleans. The car ramming, they were viable, ABC News reports. The FBI is investigating the attack as an act of terrorism after at least 10 lost their lives and 35 were injured in a mass casualty event. Biden offers full federal support to New Orleans, where you are hearing 2 cops have been injured in the shootout They are in stable condition, according to reports. Man, so there you have it, you guys. A lot unfolding overnight with New Year's. And like I said, this is a developing story. We're going to be seeing if this is a foreign actor doing an act of terror. If you think it is, put a 3 in the comments. If you think it's not, put a 4. But we're hearing that there's conflicting information coming out. But the FBI is involved, the Department of Homeland Security, and they're saying that there was a black flag on the back of the truck, had a Texas license plate, and they're saying that the vehicle actually had crossed the border not too long ago at Eagle Pass. So, like I said, though, I'm checking the live feeds right now while I'm live with you, and I am not seeing any further updates than what we currently have. But we're getting more and more that's starting to pour in. I'm sure more will come in as the day progresses. And as it does, I'll be sure to let you guys know here on the channel. And what's interesting is that I am checking, as I mentioned, foreign news media outlets, social media outlets, and they're actually providing more information right now than the mainstream media. I'm getting more updates from them faster than the other ones, as the Times of India was reporting on the truck and the flag and giving information about what unfolded, that it was potentially a terrorist attack from a foreign actor before it started coming out on the mainstream media. So, like I said, I'll continue to research. I'll do my best to get you guys the latest updated information so you know exactly what is going on, because they are saying this looks like it is that type of an attack. And we heard that FBI, that specialist from the FBI who came out and said she believes, hey, it's going to come out. She said, I don't know why they are hesitating, why they're speculating that it is not an act of terror. She said that I believe that is exactly what it is, and that it was very planned out, and that they need to go ahead and let people know that this is what is taking place right now, because she is saying that this is very serious. This is, and we even heard that one individual say, sleeper cells. There could be sleeper cells that could be initiating attacks here, and we could see more similar to this. So that is the latest updates. GW says, thank you. You produce excellent content. Thank you for the $10 super chat and the kind words. I appreciate that. I will continue to keep you up to date here on the channel. And if you appreciate the updates, do me a favor. If you haven't done so yet, hit that like button. Help spread this out further. That simple gesture, just clicking that for just 1 second, helps the channel get more views across the platform. So hitting the like button, I appreciate it a ton. If I can get like half, I think the ratio is like half of the people watching to hit the like button if you haven't done so yet. That really helps push it out. Also, the super chats, greatly appreciated. That helps push it out as well. Charlene, thank you for the super chat. And if you want to stay up to date, it's totally free. Why not? Subscribe, turn on the notification bell as breaking news comes out. I'll keep you guys up to speed. I'll research everything, put it on the screen, read right from it. I try to cite the sources when I have information prior, so that way you can use hyperlinks to see the sources that I'm referencing, and you can know that it is the latest information. I'll keep you up to speed on everything. But like I said, we are hearing that there are former FBI specialists that are now coming out, and they are saying they believe it's going to come out here very soon. They don't know why they're hesitating, that this was an act of terror on U.S. soil. And we'll see as information comes out. I'll be sure to keep you guys up to speed here on the channel. That is the latest, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Hit the like button, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care. God bless. This is Steve.